I've promoted to panelist another individual called Map Control, or Abu Ayoub. Are you with us, Abu?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for having this very unique conversation about the Quran. So I just had a couple questions for you, Jay.
Yeah,
Um, first, first off, do you know Arabic? Do you know how to read Arabic?
I can read and write it. I'm not fluent in it, and I would not say that, I would not consider myself a scholar of Arabic. And everything that I'm using has nothing to do with my research. I'm
Yeah,
nothing more than a,
I'm not trying to find a got you question. I'm really sincerely because it's basically setting up my next question.
yeah, go ahead.
Well, you stated before that, okay, Hatun and some of the researchers, they're trying to find a Quran or a website or some type of software where you can compare all the qira'ats together, right? Have you found anything yet?
We
To
have
do that?
been, I haven't done any of this work on it, so not me personally. What we are doing is we're using Arabic scholars to do this for us. I can't give you their names there. They will when they are ready to go public, they will go public themselves. What they
Okay.
asked Hatun and I to do is to make it public so that people can look at it. But
Well,
certainly, you can
yeah,
see
I'm
Arabic.
located in the Middle East. I'm located in Kuwait. I have available multiple scholars. We do have these types of softwares. They're readily available. And I have done this research personally. So my question to you is, this is a buildup to it. Okay, there are differences that you said you found there. The first thing I just state off the bat that none of the scholars before in Arabic ever shied away from this. You can find multiple tafsirs that actually explain the various readings. Do you agree with that as well?
Yes. Listen, what's fascinating to me is that these scholars that they've known about this for 1,000 years, as I said earlier,
Hmm.
if they knew about them for 1,000 years, why are Muslims claiming that there are no differences, that there are no diacritical differences, that there is no difference in the text, when this is well known in the Middle East and certainly when in the Arab-speaking world?
Well,
And I'm
my next question to you would
maybe
be,
for the Pakistanis and the Indians and the
yeah,
Bangladeshis who don't know Arabic and are not aware of the enormous amount of research that you're referring to.
I think that this is just, it's a problem with modern day semantics, but previous generations, there was no problem with this, the various readings or the understandings of verses itself. And I think that you, as a person that knows the Bible and Hebrew, that there can be different interpretations, even of a word. Set aside the reading. If
Yeah,
there's a different interpretation of the word, the text itself can still stand, right or
absolutely.
wrong. Okay. So my question to you, final question to you is, and I would actually request that you make this research, ask your friends, and then come back and tell us. Um, are there in the 31 or the 21, it depends on the qira'at, are there ones that there is no difference? Are there verses where there's no difference at all between all of them? And I would suggest, do you know this? Have you
Well,
ever?
I could answer that right now. There are many verses that are no difference between all of them.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So then that means that we do have in the tradition that it goes back. There are some verses which there are no differences at all. For example, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. You can go and you can look at all of them together. They're all exactly the same. So would you
From
say that this for sure would at least go to the first century, the Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim?
Oh, now you're asking for me to say something else. Now remember, there are some verses that are exactly the same. I assume you're referring to the transmitters that we were talking about from the ninth and 10th century. I'm sorry, from the 8th and ninth century. Those from the 8th and ninth century, all of these kira, these ahruf that we're referring to, look at the dates. They are from the ninth century primarily. So for the
Yeah.
last 1,000 years, yes, there are verses that are the same. What's fascinating is that around the ninth century, you get a whole variation, such a variation of ahruf and kiryat. The
Mm.
ahruf and the kiryat, I will say this, Abu Ayoub, is not the most damaging material. The more damaging material is the difference in verses in the razm differences. Those are
Uh,
the ones from the original.
sorry, Jay, but, okay, when we're talking, the ahruf are not considered qira'at. They're different. I just want to make that point real
No,
quick.
listen, and Abu,
Seven ahruf
I,
are
I
not.
will. I will talk to maybe 5 different Muslims, and they'll have me 5 different definitions of what akhruf and kiryat. That's one of the
No,
frustrations.
no, there are differences
One
between the
definition of
two.
it.
Jay, there are differences between the interpretation of ahruf and the interpretation of qira'at, but there are 7 ahruf and there's 10 qira'at. And then from the 10, each teacher had two main students, which makes it 20, and they varied. And the reason why So you can't say they're the same. This is a big problem. But the 7 ahruf itself, the scholars have basically made multiple explanations, but they know that it was done to facilitate and make it easier for the various tribes there, the dialects. So
we're going to agree on this, but in leaving this, let me just say this one point. Even the reference to the 7 ahruf, the 7 ahruf comes from 9th century attributions of these 7 ahrufs. If there were, let's just say hypothetically, there were 7 ahruf, those would have all been expunged by the time. If Uthman had created that second compilation, they would have been expunged by 652 AD. So they would not exist in the 9 copies.
That's a difference of opinion. There are scholars. There's 3 main opinions on this. One opinion believes that it was completely wiped off. That's one opinion. One opinion is that Uthman left a little bit left for the people at that time, but he stuck to the original Qurayshi dialect when he could. And then the third one is no, that then all the qira'at have the various in it.
But how do we even know any of this, what you just said?
Because our religion is based on tradition, Jay.
The manuscript is
based on tradition. The same way that we approach the ahadith, it's based upon tradition. And
which
that's
only gets started in the 9th century. So again, this is all speculative.
It doesn't matter if it started in the 9th century. Do those people claim that it goes back to the Prophet? Set aside, does Hafs, you said Hafs created a new version of the Quran. Did he say I'm creating a new one, or does he say this goes back to the Prophet Muhammad?
Oh, I'm sure they all claim that, just like Muslims today are still claiming that.
There you go.
But let me finish with this. Let me just leave this with you. Until you can show us where these qira'ats and these ahruf exist in the original manuscripts, which you can't because they don't even exist, can you then see why we're always going to be speculate on this? So is
there an original manuscript that goes to the time of the Old Testament? That goes,
But we're not making the claims about the Old Testament that you're making about the Quran. None of us would claim that we have the original of the Old Testament. We would never make that claim. Okay?
You're telling me that you don't believe you have the original Old Testament in your hands now?
We would never make the claim that we have the original. I've never made that claim. I don't know if you were at the very beginning of this talk. I made that very clear. We would never make the 4 claims you make about the Quran concerning the Old Testament. Anyways, God bless you. Thanks a lot, Abu.
Yeah,
That's good.
Thanks.